there were so many things happening in the country that I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't because I didn't know how to express myself outside of campaigning. Like I couldn't campaign or campaign on everything. I liked writing, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to write about everything like I don't want to write op-eds and stuff. But I did have opinions on things. I did want to comment on the news. I did want to do something. I just felt so helpless sitting there and watching bad stuff happen.
लाइट्स कैमरा आज़ादी एक ऐसा शो है जो हस्तियों को ढूंढ रहा है। ये वो हस्तियां हैं जिनने हमेशा समाज को चुनौती दी है। ये वो लोग हैं जो हमेशा निडर, आत्मविश्वासी और अग्रिम रहे हैं। भले ही जनता ने कभी इन्हें सराहा ना हो, मगर इन्होंने हमेशा देश के लिए काम किया है। हम इनसे बात करके इनका नज़रिया समझना चाहते हैं, जानना चाहते हैं कि ये लोग समाज को कैसे देखते हैं और ये सीखना चाहते हैं कि ज़िंदगी को बिना डरे कैसे जिया जाए। मेरा नाम है वंदित जैन और मैं इन कहानियों को आप तक लाने का बस एक माध्यम हूँ।
Hi everyone. This journey of bringing voices who challenge the status quo has been going on since Feb 20. While I've enjoyed every bit of it, the truth is I haven't made much money out of this effort. Here is what I propose. For an episode that you like, that touches your heart in some manner, you make the single minimum contribution that you can to the show. If you like my proposition, please head on to lightscameraazadi.in/support-lca and make a donation that is convenient to you. Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome to the 51st episode of Lights Camera Azadi. Sanitary Panels aka Rachita Taneja doesn't need any introduction. She is a fearless voice of quote-unquote New India and has earned huge respect and fan following through her art. Her dissent takes shapes in the form of a webcomic and through very simple panel. She manages to give loud and deep messages which resonates with the wider audience and often shakes the establishment. We all love her and her work, and I wanted to have her on the show from quite some time. And finally, just last week, I got a chance to record with her. In this episode, we touched various topics from Rachita's journey to the various social media campaigns which she was part of, like Save the Internet, Kodaikanal Won't, and her contribution to the Me Too movement. And of course, we discussed her art form. I really enjoyed talking to her and overall really admired her. Rachita comes from a genre of activism which believes in questioning the authority, from the government to an elder in the family. Such folks are rare, and I feel so privileged just to be in her company. If you haven't seen her work, well, you are missing out on a lot. Go to Instagram and follow Sanitary Panels for an intelligent humor. And before we go and meet Rachita, one small appeal. If you like an episode, please share your review on Instagram or Twitter, and don't forget to tag me or the Lights Camera Azadi account. And yes, please follow us on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. Dhanyavad. Now let's go and meet Rachita Taneja. So 3, 2, 1. Rachita Taneja, aka Sanitary Panels, very talented artist. Lights Camera Azadi में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है आपका.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
रचिता, व्हाट्स द आपके ये जो आपका आप आर्टिस्ट नेम बोल लो या इसका या आपका पेन नेम बोल लो, इसके इसके पीछे की क्या कहानी है?
I wish I remembered, to be honest. मुझे बिल्कुल नहीं याद है. I was just sitting around with my brother and one of my brother's friends, and we were throwing around names. Um, and पता नहीं पैड पड़े होंगे कहीं कमरे में या क्या था, but the name just happened upon me, and I was like, चलो let's go with it because I thought sanitary pads. तो अगर कॉमिक है, कॉमिक के पैनल्स होते हैं तो sanitary panels कर देते हैं. But I had a couple of other ideas. तो एक था अंकल स्ट्रिप्स. इन माय डायरी वहाँ लिखा हुआ है अंकल स्ट्रिप्स, भिंडी क्रॉनिकल्स, मतलब पता नहीं क्या क्या कितने नाम लिखे थे, बट वी डिसाइडेड ऑन सैनिटरी पैनल्स बिकॉज इट्स फिटिंग, नो, इट्स लाइक स्टार्टिंग से ही मतलब पीपल आर गोइंग टू बी लाइक अच्छा चलो दिस इज गोइंग टू बी समथिंग इंटेंस.
पर कभी आपने सोचा नहीं होगा ना इतना पॉपुलर हो जाएगा ये?
No, I started it just for fun. I started it to make my friends and family laugh.
एंड ऐसा मतलब ये कितना इंटरेस्टिंग है कि हम कुछ चीजें जो मतलब बस बहुत शौकिया तरीके से शुरू करते हैं, समटाइम्स दे बिकम सीरियसली प्रीटी बिग. व्हाट डू यू थिंक अबाउट इट?
Yeah, I mean, I do so many different things. I have done so many different things. मैं मतलब क्या क्या अलग अलग चीजें स्टार्ट किए हैं, but none of them worked the way that sanitary panels did. So I stuck it out. I'm very glad I stuck it out because there was a time बीच में कि I was making comics regularly, but कोई मतलब आफ्टर अ सर्टेन पॉइंट लाइक उसका रीच भी ज़्यादा नहीं था, मुझे मन भी नहीं कर रहा था, आई हैड अ बिजी जॉब, तो आई थॉट अबाउट गिविंग इट अप, बट आई स्टक इट आउट। आई एम ग्लैड आई डिड।
तो ये मैं जब भी किसी किसी कंटेंट क्रिएटर या किसी आर्टिस्ट को सुनता हूँ, तो जब उनसे टिपिकली एक बहुत क्लीशेड क्वेश्चन होता है कि अच्छा भाई सक्सेस कैसे अचीव करी जाए, तो वैसे तो कोई फॉर्मूला नहीं होता, बट ऑफन पीपल डू से कि यार आप कंसिस्टेंटली कोई चीज करते रहो साल 2 साल, एंड इवेंचुअली यू विल फाइंड अ नीश, अ वॉइस, एंड यू विल फाइंड ट्रैक्शन. तो do you think that's true, and like what's your sort of a secret sauce, if I may ask?
Secret sauce is privilege.
Hmm.
Honestly, like having, I mean, having multiple things fall into place. It's like it's a combination of privilege and luck, honestly.
Hmm.
So if my family and friends weren't as supportive as they are, अगर मेरा job इतना understanding नहीं था, if I didn't have access to the internet and to a phone and the education that I have, matlab there are many, many, many different things that had to fall into place in order for me to be able to do this.
Hmm.
Um, and matlab privilege and luck aside, it's also yeah about consistency. आपको consistency ही आगे ले जाएगी content में, because otherwise, you know, I wasn't consistent at the beginning, but then when I started becoming more consistent is when it started gathering more of an audience.
Hmm. Hmm. That's true.
And I also got like it was also like a unique idea,
हाँ, बिल्कुल.
I think. So that also helped me. And I did my job did include me knowing a lot about social media. So I was able to use the stuff that I learned from my job and put it into sanitary panels and make sure I'm looking at the data regularly and seeing what time is best to post and things like that. Oh, this is back in 2014. तब
Hmm.
ज़्यादा मतलब इतना ज़्यादा सोशल मीडिया परमिएट नहीं हुआ था लाइफ में. So yeah, it was a combination of things, but I will say consistency is key, and having a
Hmm.
unique selling point is key because there's so much noise on the internet.
और कभी आपको ऐसा लगता नहीं है कि मतलब यू आर और एज वी एज कंटेंट क्रिएटर्स एट समटाइम्स सो डिपेंडेंट ऑन वन और टू एप्स, मतलब अगर ये कहीं आउट ऑफ नोवेयर बंद हो जाए तो मतलब इट्स गॉन फॉर अस.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Tomorrow, if they like take down my Facebook page, not Facebook page, both of Facebook has become irrelevant with the younger
Hmm.
generation. But, if they shut down my Twitter page, if they shut down my Instagram page, then I will lose a lot of my livelihood. जैसे TikTok के साथ हुआ ना, there were so
हाँ.
many people who were dependent on TikTok for their livelihoods. And in a very, very genius move by this government, but when they banned TikTok.
आपका इस गवर्नमेंट के साथ बहुत खास मतलब रिलेशनशिप है, विच इज वेरी विजिबल फ्रॉम योर कॉमिक्स, उस पे मैं आता हूँ. बट बिफोर दैट आई रियली वांट टू अंडरस्टैंड रचिता योर लिटिल बिट ऑफ योर लाइफ स्टोरी. मतलब हाउ डिड यू सॉर्ट ऑफ एंडेड अप बिकमिंग व्हाट यू आर. आपने कहा आपने जॉब्स भी करी है दूसरी, सो थोड़ा सा आपकी जर्नी बताओ ना. हाउ डिड इट गो एंड हाउ इट हैज बीन, where you grew up from early days till what chain of events led you to where you are today, sort of.
I grew up in a military family. My father served in the Navy um, until quite recently. Quite recently, yeah, I'm trying to remember when he retired. But yeah, my father retired as an admiral in the Indian Navy, and so I grew up traveling a lot, a lot. I changed schools more often than I cared to have liked, but it actually helped me. It helped me meet a lot of interesting people and visit a lot of fun places and have experiences that I wouldn't have had in a civilian life. So I think very early on, my parents were also just very interested in. I mean, they had a love of nature. They loved taking us, my brother and me, to. hikes and to camping and things like that. So every summer, without fault, like I would go with my family um, to a trek or a pilgrimage or something or the other that is close to nature, close to the forest, close to the animals, and we would camp. Um, so I think that was a, I don't know. I think that has a lot to do. I can't explain how, but I think that has a lot to do with how I feel about justice. Um, I also like because I went to so many different places, I sort of saw how different people live in different communities, different cultures. Um, so that was early on, and I always used to like to question authority, which was annoying for my teachers because there was one teacher, Mrs. Sugatan. I can't remember. I can't believe I still remember her name. But I used to say very often, "Ki this is not fair." If she did something that was clearly partial or biased or something, I would say this is not fair. And so she used to make fun of me for saying, "Ha, nothing is fair for you, Rachita." So I think very early on, I started questioning things. Um, and that was also a value inculcated by my parents, I think. But then in school and in college, actually, I started volunteering with Greenpeace. And this was before the BJP came into power. So you can't call me anti-national. Congress came against me when I
Hmm.
bought. Um, and so I started volunteering with Greenpeace, and I started like getting into um, the issues that people were fighting for on ground. So I did a documentary on Jaitapur nuclear power park and how it affects the people in the area. So I went and visited them and spoke to them, heard their problems. That was a part of my college project, and I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, but because I was working with Greenpeace and I could see closely how they were creating impact, I decided, chalo, let's join Greenpeace. And so I did. After college, I joined Greenpeace. मैंने मनमोहन सिंह जी का भी बहुत मजाक किए उनके बारे में भी सोनिया गांधी के बारे में भी बहुत मीम्स बनाए हुए हैं and then I just continued staying in the non-profit world up till 2019. No, not 2019, sorry, 2017, when I went freelance. So yeah, I think my journey was very closely knit to the idea of social justice, and because I had like the privilege of an education, a good education, and I had the privilege of supportive parents and loving community. Yeah, I was able to do what I wanted to do from the get go. There were no one was forcing me to do anything. कोई expectations force नहीं करे थे मेरे ऊपर. So I think that's why I was able to do the
Hmm.
work that I did and do my comic. But yeah, that the thing about like इस government के साथ मेरा beef है ज़्यादा beef भी नहीं बोलना चाहिए ना.
नहीं बोलना चाहिए भाई.
नहीं बोलना चाहिए. I'm vegetarian for the record. Please. नहीं नहीं. I sound like one of those annoying vegans ना. मैं तो vegetarian. Eat whatever you want to eat, folks. Um,
Hmm.
but I also questioned the Congress government extensively when I went to do the Jaitapur में जब मैं documentary करने गई थी. That was also Congress related. Like they were talking about how Prithvi Raj Chauhan was there, Sonia Gandhi. They were like calling them out for the injustices they were doing against the local fishermen in that area. And whichever government is in power, I'm going to question them, no
Hmm.
matter. I mean, this government is doing um, a lot more stuff to be questioned. But I was also younger then. But yeah, I mean, whichever government comes into power, I'll question them.
Hmm. एब्सोल्युटली। और ये मतलब मेरे को एक बात जो समझ तो आती है, मतलब समझ रिटोरिकल में बोल रहा हूँ, मुझे समझ नहीं आती कि हर बार जब भी किसी आप क्रिटिक को मिलते हो जो गवर्नमेंट से सवाल कर रहा है, कुछ कर रहा है, अभी वो उसको नेसेसरी हो गया ये बोलना कि हम ना कांग्रेस के टाइम भी सवाल करते थे, ऐसा नहीं है कि हम अभी कर रहे हैं, हम उस टाइम भी करते थे। तो बहुत मतलब अब इट्स अ वेरी वियर्ड टाइम दैट वी आर लिविंग इन। दैट्स द
Yeah.
कमेंट आई वांटेड टू मेक।
Yeah, absolutely. Like, मैं पता नहीं, I feel like pulling up like my old memes and stuff that I used to make back in the day when I was questioning the coal ministry. I want to get those memes up and like show कि देखो मैंने ये भी करा हुआ है भाई। ऐसा कोई मुझे मुझे कांग्रेस नहीं दे रहा पैसा, मुझे कोई नहीं दे रहा पैसा, पॉलिटिकल पार्टी नहीं दे रहा कोई मुझे। बिकॉज वो भी है ना कि अच्छा नहीं, तुम तो कांग्रेस पेड एजेंट हो, तुम तो आप पेड एजेंट हो, तो ये भी बड़ा फन होता है कि अम, कांग्रेस वाले बोलेंगे तुम्हें आप पैसा दे रहा है, आप वाले बोलेंगे तुम्हें कांग्रेस पैसा।
अभी कुछ टाइम
बीजेपी
में
बोलेगी
टीएमसी
तुम्हें
भी आ
पैसा।
गई है।
हाँ
अब टीएमसी भी आ गई है, तो देयर विल बी लाइक मोर ऑफ दिस नाउ इन द गेम।
यार, अगर अगर पॉलिटिकल पार्टी से पैसे ले लेती मैं तो मतलब अमीर होती मैं फिर।
रचिता, आपकी जैतापुर डॉक्यूमेंट्री के बारे में थोड़ा सा बताओ ना, व्हाट वाज द थॉट देयर? वो क्या था वहाँ पे, क्या इशू आप डिस्कवर कर रहे थे?
So the issue was that this is again in 2012. But the issue was that they were building the largest nuclear power park in Jaitapur, which is a small coastal place in Maharashtra. And the problem is that it would affect the livelihoods of many people who were living in that area. जैसे nuclear प्लांट से जैसे जो
वेस्ट।
कूलेंट निकलता है,
हम्म।
वेस्ट तो नहीं, कूलेंट जो निकलता है, दैट इज रियली हॉट। इट्स दिस hot water that's going to be released um, into the sea, ocean, and that means that the fish won't lay their eggs close to the coast anymore, which means it's going to negatively affect fishermen in the area. Then another thing was that it's an earthquake prone zone. So, how safe is it for the locals to be in that proximity? Because
हम्म।
it would be the largest nuclear park in the world, I think. They wanted like six separate plants or something. I don't remember. It was ages ago. And they they were also like उन्होंने public consultation के नाम पे गुंडे भेज दिए, मतलब they where the public consultation was supposed to happen, when people went there to say कि नहीं, हमें ये नहीं चाहिए हमारे एरिया में, तो they had like thugs standing there ताकि no one would speak so that they wouldn't have to record कि किसी ने dissent किया था, किसी ने अपोज किया था। तो मतलब it was a very complex issue, and they were there also like a lot of discrepancy in the amount of money they were willing to give to the people for their land. तो पहले बहुत कम पैसे कोट किए, फिर सडनली आफ्टर पीपल स्टार्टेड सेइंग नहीं नहीं, फिर सडनली बहुत ज़्यादा पैसे बढ़ा दिए उन्होंने। तो they were also like being shady about all of it. So at that time I went and spoke to the fishermen community, fisher people community, and heard what they had to say, and they all had valid points. It's just that कोई उनको सुन नहीं रहा था, they weren't discussing it, उनको पैसे मिल रहे थे ना, तो मतलब पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज को तो प्रॉफिट ही दिख रहा था। So yeah, that was the issue, and I mean there is a lot of like there were a lot of safety concerns. Ki how safe is it to have it in that area? So that's the documentary I made. It was mostly people focused, and yeah, that was for my college final project. कि एक मतलब देवर हमारे क्लास में कितने 40 लोग थे, 10 people, like we all submitted proposals for what we'd like to do, and then 10 got selected and mine did, and so I was able to make mine.
इट वुड बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू पुल समथिंग आउट लाइक दिस टुडे, मेरे को जैसा लगता है।
Huh, I mean, we are seeing that people who are reporting truth from the ground, like whether it's journalists or, photographers or videographers, matlab, anyone who is daring to speak up is is being threatened, is being questioned, is being harassed. Censorship हो रहा है full on country में. And that's one of the things that I think about often कि डर नहीं लगता था. At least for me, मुझे डर नहीं लगता था when I was making um, memes or making fun, poking fun at the Congress government or any other government. मतलब तब डर नहीं लगता था. अब by design they want you to feel fear. I'm not saying कि कांग्रेस इज विदाउट फॉल्ट. उन्होंने भी बहुत सारे ह्यूमन राइट्स वायलेशन किए हुए हैं. They were also like harassed and censored and threatened. But I'm saying it's like you can feel it in the air now. You can feel it like there's this tension for people who are, for journalists especially.
ये डर आपको मतलब हाँ, आर यू ऑल्सो इम्प्लाइंग दैट नाउ दैट इट्स यू ऑल्सो फियर, आपको भी थोड़ा डर लगता है? और मतलब और कब से लगने लगा? मतलब वाज दिस अ पर्टिकुलर इंसिडेंट दैट यू सॉ और वाज इट लाइक इट वाज मोर ग्रेजुअल?
हाँ, I mean डर तो सबको लगता है ना. There
हम्म.
is like a constant. It's subconscious now. It's like when I'm
हम्म.
making a comic. I mean, I don't necessarily even need to think about the fear anymore because it's just so pervasive. Um, and this is all by design. This is exactly what they want. They want uh, they want trolling and threats of legal action or physical violence to silence uh, journalists, activists, students, cartoonists, कोई भी जो क्वेश्चन करता है गवर्नमेंट को. और ये censorship नया नहीं है. It's been happening for a while, but it doesn't have a place in democracy. Uh, because and it's not self censorship also. A lot of people are like क्या आप self censor करते हो? भाई अगर मुझे लीगल या फिजिकल वायलेंस का थ्रेट्स मिल रहे हैं, दैट्स एंड देन आई डिसाइड नॉट टू स्पीक आउट, दैट्स नॉट सेल्फ सेंसरशिप. वो कोई और कर रहा है censorship.
हम्म.
But yeah, I mean, that's also the point of all of the violent trolls that I have in my DMs and my comment section. Ki they want me to stop doing the work that I'm doing by harassing me to no end. And
हम्म.
मैं फिर भी I was raised Hindu. I'm an atheist now, but I was raised Hindu, and I still have that privilege.
Enjoy basketball, soccer, and all your favorite sports like never before at BetMGM. Sign up using bonus code CHAMPION and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Plus, when you register with BetMGM, you'll get instant access to a variety of parlay selection features, live betting options, player props, and daily boosted odds specials. Download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com and enter bonus code CHAMPION and place your first wager risk-free up to $1,000. Now you're winning with the king of sportsbooks. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Washington, D.C. and Virginia only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Which is, but someone like Rana Ayub, उनको जो trolling and harassment मिलती है, that's at a whole other level because she's Muslim. तो ये गवर्नमेंट का strategy है. It's a very clear attempt to intimidate and bully anyone who criticizes them or threatens their image. And it's a very systematic tool factory. Because they keep saying toolkit. भाई उनका पूरा tool factory बना हुआ है.
हाँ, वो तो है ही. मतलब एंड इट्स सो एविडेंट, मतलब इतना एविडेंट होने के बाद भी मतलब पीपल जनरली डोंट वांट टू सॉर्ट ऑफ एक्सेप्ट एंड डिनाइल में है तो एक मेजर चंक. बट ठीक है, उसमें डेफिनेटली वी विल टॉक. मुझे एक बात बताओ, मेरे को एकदम एक सवाल आया दिमाग में कि आई डोंट वांट टू जस्ट टॉक, मैं बहुत सेंसिटिव बात नहीं करना चाहता यहाँ पे, बट इन ट्रोल्स का कोई पैटर्न दिखता है आपको? इज देयर समथिंग, इज देयर अ सॉर्ट ऑफ अ पैटर्न दैट यू सी दैट कि यार मेजोरिटी तो शायद हो सकता है एनोनिमस अकाउंट्स के हो, वो तो विच इज वेरी ऑब्वियस, बट कुछ ऐसे भी होंगे जो शायद मतलब शायद एनोनिमस नहीं होंगे, वो any kind of pattern do you observe, or they are more youngsters there, or they are more middle aged men there, I don't know.
I mean, the pattern is very similar, at least on Twitter and Instagram. Ki um, they're all BJP supporters, RSS supporters. Um, and yeah, beyond that, I don't know. I think like it's obviously mostly men.
Hmm.
But beyond that, I don't know. But they have like a very they have a process in place. They have Telegram groups where they um, decide who they want to troll today. सो दिल से कि ये है अकाउंट, आप इस अकाउंट पे जाके रिपोर्ट मारो, एंड रिपोर्ट मारना फिर भी ठीक है यार, करो तुम रिपोर्ट मारो, बट देन ऑल्सो गो एंड इंसल्ट हर टू नो एंड। तो अगर
Hmm.
आपका नाम उस टेलीग्राम ग्रुप में आ गया और आपका
तो आप
लिंक आ
गए?
गया उस टेलीग्राम ग्रुप में, दे हैव लाइक हंड्रेड्स ऑफ दीस ग्रुप्स, नॉट आप गए
Hmm.
कि यू कैन जस्ट एक्सपेक्ट अ फ्लरी ऑफ
हाँ.
horrible language in your DMs and in your comment section.
Hmm.
And sometimes they also do it in public on Instagram pages. They'll be like, ये है, इसने ये कॉमिक बनाया है, इसके पीछे जाओ.
Hmm.
So sometimes whistleblowers from these Telegram groups alert me beforehand कि
अच्छा. Hmm. Hmm.
ये आपके मतलब स्क्रीनशॉट भेज के कि they're coming to target you. So I am very thankful to those whistleblowers because harassing a woman is a whole other story. Na? It's like you gendered harassment बहुत um, gets nasty very quickly. Gendered and religious and caste based
Hmm. Of
harassment.
course. Yeah.
It's very ugly, and it's very different for a man or a man presenting person and a woman. Um, so yeah.
एंड डू यू ऑल्सो सॉर्ट ऑफ, आपको ये समझ आया कि बोलते तो आई मीन देयर इज अ गुड चंक विच स्पीक्स, बट उनको कब ट्रिगर करता है, या उन तक वो कब पहुंचता है, व्हेन सर्टन कॉमिक और पोस्ट और ट्वीट गेट सर्टन लेवल ऑफ स्टीम, इज दिस व्हेन इट गोज देयर और
Yeah,
नॉट? और
yeah. When it gets a little viral,
हम्म.
and the way I measure virality is key shares are more than likes.
हम्म.
Um, so when it gets viral is when the um, the trolls target me more.
हम्म.
Uh, but also like if I'm when I draw Modi's face, usually
हम्म.
trolls get angered.
हम्म.
So yeah, it's I mean they're getting paid for it. So
हम्म. ऑफ कोर्स.
who said BJP jobs नहीं create कर रही?
हम्म. ये है. एंड ये इस बारे में इतनी ज्यादा चर्चा हो चुकी है रचिता, आई मीन मैं तो, दिस पैटर्न हैज बीन गोइंग ऑन सिंस, मतलब मेरे को तो 2016-17 से समझ आ गया था ये चल रहा
Hmm.
है. एंड इट इज बीन लाइक 5-6 साल हो गए मुझे तो ये देखते देखते. एंड ऑल्ट न्यूज चिल्ला चिल्ला के बोल रहा है, एंड देन देयर आर मल्टीपल अदर पीपल हु आर सेइंग दिस. मुझे समझ नहीं आता व्हाट इज लाइक, लोगों को समझ क्यों नहीं आ रहा है ये, एक्सेप्ट दैट ऑब्वियसली द हैंडफुल पीपल हु अंडरस्टैंड, लाइक यू एंड मी. रिमेनिंग मतलब क्या पट्टी वट्टी बंधी हुई है क्या आंखों पे, मतलब क्या चल क्या रहा है, या दे आर जस्ट ओके विथ इट?
I mean, there are people who genuinely believe that India should be a Hindu nation. So how do you how do you address
हम्म.
that kind of mindset that this Brahminical patriarchy should exist,
हम्म.
this caste system should exist, women should be second grade citizens, and the only religion should be Hinduism. So people genuinely do believe that. And then there is a thing कि अच्छा but then हमारे पास कोई option नहीं है और तो I'm talking about like when people are going to vote.
वो तो इलेक्टोरल हो गया, चलो.
Hmm.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, people also, so there's a very interesting thing that goes on in the human mind where if you are questioned about your beliefs or if you're shown facts about your beliefs
Hmm.
that are contrary
To what you believe.
to,
Hmm.
to what's real,
Hmm.
कि जैसे ऑल्ट न्यूज़ ने स्टोरी की कि नहीं ये वीडियो अब की नहीं है, ये वीडियो पहले की है, कहीं और से है.
Hmm.
People are going to double down on their beliefs when they get told that what you heard was incorrect or what you thought was incorrect. So it has the
Hmm.
opposite effect sometimes, most often. कि when you say, nahi, nahi, this actually didn't happen, people are going to believe it even more. Their conviction is just going to increase because it's easier to believe that what your initial belief was is correct
तो
than to
तुम झूठ बोल रहे हो. You are
accept
lying.
कि मैं गलत था.
Hmm.
So it's easier to double down on your beliefs than to question your. It's like also, yeah, it's also like a lot of cognitive dissonance, ना कि this is ये एक चीज अलग है दूसरी चीज अलग है.
मैंने एक चीज जो नोटिस करी, आई एम टेकिंग अ स्टेप बैक हियर रचिता, टू
Mhm.
इनिशियल स्टोरी जो आपने अपनी लाइफ की बताई, कि डिफेंस फोर्सेस और डिफेंस फैमिलीज में थोड़ा सा शायद इतना नोटिस नहीं करा है मैंने कि उनमें टेंडेंसी हो अथॉरिटी को क्वेश्चन करने की. आई माई assumption कैन बी रॉन्ग बट इज जनरली माई एक्सपीरियंस. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, डू यू थिंक एम आई राइट, एंड अगर इफ आई एम राइट देन हाउ वाज your family different, and how did they encourage you to question authority?
I think it just depends on your family. I don't know if military or not really affects it. If you have
Hmm.
parents who don't uh, don't let you express yourselves, or if you have parents who are um, pretending like they are God and you have to listen to everything they're saying, then you are going to, ऐसा होता है कि अच्छा नहीं अपने अपने elders को question मत करो. My parents didn't have that. And I think a lot of our culture, Indian culture, is about don't question elders, don't question authority. इन्होंने कुछ सोच समझ के किया होगा. So I didn't have that growing up. And I was very lucky I didn't have that growing up. Um, so yeah, I don't know whether it's a question about military family or not, but definitely we have like a culture in India where you respect your elders without reservation. You have to respect your elders even if they are doing the wrong thing, even if they are treating you badly, um, even if they're hurting you. You have to respect them, which is like काफी it's a quite a toxic
Okay. Uh-huh.
part of our culture.
And Rachita, when was the time when you sort of आपने थोड़ा अपना अपनी लाइफ फिलोसॉफीज थोड़ी डिस्कवर करी? Was it in Greenpeace, or was it during your college time, during when you were doing documentaries, or where did you sort of what was the time like when you started making sense of right and wrong?
I don't know. I I don't know. I don't know if it was about right or wrong. I think it was about kindness, that you should be kind. And I don't know when the sense of right or wrong came into, like consciously came into my mind. But it was always key, you should be kind, which is again like something I would credit my parents with. Is they showed a lot of kindness, whether it was to other people or to each other or to my brother and me or um, you know to people around them, people in their lives. There was always a lot of kindness. treat others how you would like to be treated, kind of thing. Uh, it's like, don't raise your voice when you're when you disagree with someone, for example. So yeah, I think that that was always like something that I was taught. And I think I don't know when the idea of justice was like came forward. I think also just sexism, you know, dealing with sexism as a kid is very hard to wrap your head around if your family hasn't treated you differently from your brother. So like
Hmm.
my parents treated us alike. And it was so difficult for me to grapple with the idea ki, Arey, if my parents are not differentiating between me and my brother, who are you know, to a
Hmm.
teacher or to whoever? Like, who are you to differentiate between me and a boy?
Hmm.
So वो भी था. Yeah, I guess it's a lot of things. I can't put my finger on it. I've gone on this long rant about it, but yeah,
And what do your parents think about your work now?
they support me no matter what. Um, as in, like, they'll stand by me no matter what. I don't know how they feel about me doing this on a regular basis. I think like all parents, they're worried, no?
Hmm.
Um, but they've known from my entire life that I do what I want to do,
Hmm.
and what I think is right. So they don't tell me not to do what I'm doing, or they don't, or they've stopped. They're just like, yeah, you do you, just be careful, be safe, we love you.
Hmm. Have you ever thought about continuing your work? And this is just a very random question that came in my head. But for the time being, let's say, I mean, move abroad, go to a different country, and just continue your work from there. Have you ever had this idea crossed your mind ever?
Huh, I mean, I wanted to study more. Potentially, I wanted to do some residency, artist residency or something. I don't know. Could be. It's an interesting idea, but I think that I like being in India. I like living in India. Um, yeah, I actually just want to stay in India.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
There
I can
is
imagine.
it's just yeah, I just like India.
Hmm. There is this, I don't know, I think I sort of relate to it, Rajita, क्योंकि there is this deep desire, inherent desire in your head, in my mind, that I mean, personally speaking, I mean, I would like to be abroad and explore the all these places that one dreams of. But by the end of the day, I mean, I I want to be here. I want to do something for the country, and it just weird connection that you just cannot express, that you would be here. I mean, that's what I feel, and I think you too, to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, it's beyond like wanting to do good. I don't know how much good I actually do, but it's not about wanting to do good. It's just like I want to stay in my country.
Hmm.
It's my country. This is my people, and I like it here. Um, and yeah, I'll try to do good. Again, I don't know how much good I actually do, but I try.
Many people may not know this, but Rajita, you're also involved with the net neutrality movement, and like you mentioned also in our earlier talk. So tell me, how did that happen, and what was, I think net neutrality has sort of gone, from people's memory, and I think it's a good time now to bring that back via this podcast. So if you don't mind, can you walk us through that whole journey of yours? What was it? What was the fight? What are you fighting? And overall, how did you win?
Yeah, so this was back, I think, in 2015. I think the first conversation that came up was when Airtel wanted to charge for voice over internet. calls or something like that. And if I remember correctly, yeah. And that violated the principles of net neutrality. Um, and so a big conversation happened about it on social media, and I was watching it closely. Um, and the news started reporting net neutrality for the first time. And then I think shortly after shortly after, I think Flipkart and Airtel then uh, joined hands to try and um, they also were trying to do a project. Again, I forget what it is. It was so long ago, but they were trying to do something that violated net neutrality as well. And so voices were raised against that as well. I did a petition on that as well. And they backed out because they started receiving like low ratings, and people had signed the petition, and we kept tweeting the petition at them, and we sent them emails about it, and they got back to us and said, we're not doing this anymore.
Hmm.
So that was early on. Then I think around the same time, the Metis put out a draft consultation saying कि this is what net neutrality would look like in India. And it was a disaster, the draft notification. And so they had said, कि, Acha, this is open for public consultation. You please reply. And it was such a long, detailed, full of jargon document that I think Nikhil and I think Raman at the time, so Nikhil Pava from Media Nama, Kiran from Hasgeek, Raman Chima, who is a lawyer, and Apar Gupta, who's also a lawyer, and a bunch of other people. They all got together like to debunk, like to simplify the paper, and to essentially say this is what the paper is saying and this is how it will affect you. And so a group of us just got together voluntarily on a Slack. I don't know, it was a Slack group or what it was. We all got together and we started informally. It was just like a collective of people who were interested in it. Like I didn't know any of them before that. I just cold called um, people who were talking about it in the news. I like cold called Nikhil and I cold called Kiran and Raman, and I was like, let's do a petition on this. They're like, petition bhi karte hain, but we also need to do a um, we need to like make sure people respond to the public consultation. So I was like, let's do it. So a bunch of us would get on calls. We would take up, this was all voluntary. We would take up different tasks. So for example, I set up the Facebook group to mobilize people, and wrote emails to send out to people, and spoke to the media and all of that. And then someone from the group reached out to AIB, and they did a video explainer on it. And we ended up getting like a million responses to the government, a million submissions to the government, which was the biggest at the time any consultation had received. And so, because it became such a hot topic and the media was reporting on it and comedians were talking about it, I had made comics about it at the time as well, which went viral, which was like explaining net neutrality. So, we all just like voluntarily in our free time just chipped in and made this like a pretty huge deal. And we won, we won a couple of really important victories for net neutrality. And so that was the Save the Internet campaign. And then there were some people who worked who took it forward and said ki chalo, let's set up an organization that does this for digital rights as a whole, because there are other issues such as internet shutdowns and privacy laws that need to be that need attention, given how many people keep coming onto the internet for the first time in India. um, and so the Internet Freedom Foundation was founded, and I'm on the board of trustees of the Internet Freedom Foundation right now. And they continue to do stellar work. I know you've had them on your podcast as well. They
Yeah,
are just
brilliant team, brilliant and more very memorable episode.
very, very, very good, very effective at what they do. Um, and they're doing just really important work, really important, really good work.
Yeah.
So very, I'm very proud to be associated with Save the Internet and Internet Freedom Foundation, and and that's the beauty of these kinds of collectives. Like I had no idea what net neutrality was before that, but there were other people who did, and I knew social media and mobilization, and so everyone just
Mhm.
brought best skills to the table, and um, I made comics for it as well, and yeah, it was
Hmm.
um, it was a pretty cool campaigning victory, and
Hmm.
IFF continues to do fantastic work.
Yeah. And I think there was one more aspect to net neutrality and save the internet movement. Uh, was how Facebook was so desperate, and this
Oh
was the
my
time
god,
when
I forgot Facebook.
yeah, yes, yeah.
Oh my
You want to talk about it?
we did a campaign against free basics as well. So I had a petition plus tweet at Facebook campaign that I did um, with my older organization, and Facebook was so nervous about it. They started attacking us, and they started buying out full page ads saying these activists don't know what they're talking about. Um, uh, they had like they did. I think Mark Zuckerberg was in IIT Delhi doing a town hall as well, where he said these activists, doing their petitions. So I was like patting myself on the back because I had started the petition. But these doing these petitions yeah, don't know what they're talking about. And free basics is important. Internet.org is important. They even rebranded from free basics, sorry, from
Yeah,
internet.org to free basics because of our, effort. Because my petition was called not really internet.org.
hmm.
So they also, um, they also like rebranded and stuff because they were trying to they were just trying to create a walled garden internet which they could control, and that's basically violating net neutrality, right? So you can't show people a specific set of things and not like all content must be treated equal.
Yeah, yeah,
Every piece of content should be accessible in the same way. So what Facebook was trying to do was to create a internet light, and that way they could control the list of things that you are allowed to see, and that's all,
yeah.
for profit. And there are so many countries, poor countries, that have had free basics and internet.org go
With
through
just Facebook, with just Facebook.
just Facebook and a couple of other websites that Facebook controls, and they
Yeah.
actually believe that the internet is Facebook. They don't know that there
Hmm.
is an internet beyond. you know
Wow.
people people who have access only to free basics or whatever they're calling it now, um, they believe that that is the internet. Ki Facebook is the internet, and that's what they were trying to do in India as well. And they would
Yeah.
have got away with it if it wasn't for us.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, hats off to you guys, and the kind of pressure you managed to put in on the government, and yeah, that was a time when Modi ji was going all the way to Silicon Valley, and Mark Zuckerberg was changing his profile photo to sort of an Indian banner, and and it was just crazy. I thought, I mean, this is,
he was so
it
desperate.
was, yeah, it was like ये कहीं भी जा सकता है boss. This can go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it was like so many people. There were dozens of people who worked on this campaign. So
Yeah.
hats off to the whole team because it was it's David versus Goliath. We were going against
Yeah,
Facebook.
yeah, of course. And it was, and the weirdest part was, I mean, and this was just such a evil crony capitalist strategy, right? I mean, if you think about it, and uh, I don't use this word so lightly, but yes, it was what it was. And that the sheer desperation, that, and the way I was looking at, and I think that is the time that I also developed sort of a critical thinking and started to be critical of people and generally power figures, is how they were branding it, that this will help farmers, this will help poor people. I don't know what bullshit were they selling? I had no idea. But I would go to a theater and I would see these big ads of free basics that, we want to put everybody on the internet. And that is the time I realized, see, Facebook is such a big company. Why does it want to do it? It's definitely not doing out of sheer goodwill. And
This is fishy. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, this is fishy, right? What is happening here? And then I realized, and reading, I mean, whatever the campaign was trying to educate us, I think AIB also did a very good job there, and it sort of helped me realize that, okay, so the Facebook has already penetrated uh first billion people. Now it wants to penetrate the next billion.
Yeah,
And how can it penetrate the next billion if they don't have internet? Fine, let's give them internet. But if we give them internet, how do we make sure that they only go to Facebook?
yeah.
Let's give them limited internet. Fuck, man, what a evil genius strategy, right?
Yeah, and they are doing it in so many countries, in so many poor countries.
That thing is still alive, is it?
Yeah, yeah, it's alive, just not in India. And the initial,
And I
sorry, I said METI had put out a thing, consultation paper. No, it was TRAI. I was wrong.
hmm
I just
Oh,
remembered
okay.
TRAI had
Hmm.
put out the paper, the draft
Hmm.
consultation. But yeah, I mean, you could tell that they were, shitting their pants because of how much money they were pouring into advertising, or to like
Yeah.
counter our message. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
a that was
absolutely.
that was a that was a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. And the victory is especially, important because, Modi ji was like new in office. So he has his whole fandom. Plus, I mean, generally youngsters were all gaga about Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. It's not like what reputation he has in 2022, still he had in 2014, 15.
Yeah.
So, like, both of them, the idea of both of them doing something together was like, okay, this is not going to go well. But I think it was because a lot of young people signed up from, despite of their political differences, and they sort of agreed that, this is not done. I think that is.
Yeah, I think with the government also, like they weren't. I mean, I don't know, but they didn't. They weren't like. I don't think the government and Zuckerberg were together on this at all times.
Acha, is it? मुझे लगा था that he Zuckerberg was really trying to woo Modi ji. I mean,
He
that was
was
pretty
trying.
clear.
He was trying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He to tries to woo all world leaders. No, and Modi
Hmm.
also obviously wants to make headlines and be in front of the camera all the time with influential people. That's his whole job. It's a one long photo shoot for him life. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so I mean, I think at the end of the day, the decision was made again. Yeah, because of so much pressure, it could have gone unnoticed. Was the scariest part.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
the conversation wasn't happening in India, it would have gone unnoticed, and
yeah.
we'd have it without any kind of like media coverage or any kind of involvement of stakeholders like civil society and researchers and policymakers. So
Hmm.
it was important to have the conversations. Like the stage was set for us to fight Facebook because we'd already started talking about net neutrality so much in the country.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and had it not been for you guys who sort of gave this issue a stage, I mean, yes, it would have been gone unnoticed, and who knows what form and shape it would have taken in this country. I mean, it would. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine that how
It would affect
had this.
it would affect poor people the most, right? The people who are coming onto the internet for the first time, they're getting a limited version of the internet. They do not have access
Yeah,
to the same internet that the rest of us privileged
yeah,
people have, and they would be very limited. That you know their ability to access the internet as we know it right now would not be there. They would only have like whatever Facebook chose for them to see, and that's just manipulative. And
yeah, and the monopoly Facebook would then command is
yeah, yeah.
like. Yeah, I mean, see, I have like let's say hypothetically, I have 100 million Indians on the internet, which is my internet. You want to enter this market? This is the price. Fuck. Oh
Yeah.
my god. Not even
And
funny.
and the thing is that they would give it to people for free. They would like distribute. I'm sure they would distribute like free phones and stuff with Facebook.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. फोन नहीं
Ah,
है फोन दे दो जियो से शायद उसका टाइप कर लेते वो उस टाइम रिलायंस से.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows? पैसा जहाँ पर है, that's where Ambani, Adani go. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, no, absolutely. It's just so vile and so sus. I mean,
Hmm.
these corporations, like they're all, yeah, yeah. That's a whole other. My hate for corporations runs deep.
Visible via your comics. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, and what did Rachita, मतलब आपने क्या सीखा, I mean, about mobilization and movement after this whole incident and episode?
Uh, that's a heavy question. I haven't thought about it in a long time. I think I understood the power of social media much more.
Hmm.
Like because of social media, people spoke about it so much more. Because of AIB videos and comedians talking about it and influential people talking about it and the comics I made and everyone was talking about it. Um, so and it was like mostly it was driven. It's not like we had like a list of people who we could email and say ki acha aap ye karo ab, or we weren't like calling up people and saying send in a respond to this public consultation or this draft notification. It was all on social media. It was all happening on Facebook and Twitter. Ironically, Facebook more so.
Yeah, Facebook को गाली देना was very fun.
I was making comics on the cartoon on his platform. Um, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just how many people we were able to mobilize on social media was quite inspiring. Um, I mean, like it's one of the examples of where social media has played a heavy role in changing the direction of a policy.
Hmm.
But
And
also, like
जो मेरा
I
no, please, sorry.
Yeah, but I think that online mobilization is very different from offline mobilization. So I'm going to say this is what I learned about online mobilization. Because offline mobilization, you should talk to the farmers.
I wanted to know कि why do you, मतलब as per you, I mean nobody has these answers honestly Rajita, but आपको क्या लगा कि मतलब उसके बाद इतने मोमेंट्स आए बट ऑनलाइन मोबिलाइजेशन उस लेवल का हम अचीव नहीं कर पाए, मतलब be it whatever, I mean whether it is farm laws or CA or anything else, there were quite many movements uh, which were worth fighting for, but उतना मोबिलाइजेशन सोशल मीडिया का हुआ नहीं, एंड बिकॉज जब ये हो रहा था तो मुझे ये इतना विविडली क्यों याद है, बिकॉज आई थॉट पीपल वर सेन, आई थॉट पीपल आर लॉजिकल, आई थॉट पीपल वर रैशनल, उनको लॉजिक दो, दे विल अंडरस्टैंड इट एंड दे विल सॉर्ट ऑफ एक्ट ऑन इट, बट इन
Humans
द
are
कमिंग,
emotional. We're not
या
logical, we're emotional.
या so next 5-6 years, I mean I was obviously proven very wrong, तो वो हो नहीं पाया कभी उसके बाद, आई मीन दैट लेवल ऑफ मोबिलाइजेशन, राइट?
I'm sorry, I'm just going to talk about the other campaign that I worked on, which was
प्लीज.
the Unilever campaign. I don't know if you know about it, but
आई डोंट, आई एम सो सॉरी.
no, no, no worries. So there is a place in Tamil Nadu called Kodaikanal,
हम्म.
and there was a Unilever factory over there, a Hindustan Unilever factory that shut down some 17, 18 years ago.
हम्म.
But it was shut down by activists because it was a mercury factory. They were making thermometers. So it was a thermometer factory. And they were disposing of mercury into the environment. And Kodaikanal is
हम्म.
this gorgeous hill station.
या.
And so not only did they pollute the environment, they also ended up harming their workers by not giving them safety gear around mercury, which is extremely dangerous. People died from it. So long term, like the workers who were there in that factory, they had long term health issues. Some of them died. Um, and they never got compensated for it.
Hmm.
So they had to like sell their houses in order to afford treatment, for example. So they were fighting for their rights for about 14 to 15 years at the time, fighting for compensation, like a fair compensation, so that they could pay off their hospital bills and they could afford long-term care for their family members because, you know, they would come back from work with mercury still on their hands,
Hmm.
their hair, which meant the whole family was being exposed. So this group of people from the group of activists from Chennai approached us in the organization I previously worked in. And they're like, we're making a music video and we want to launch like a petition with it. And so we sat down and we strategized and we figured out, okay, this is the person who has the power in this situation. This is the person who we can most likely um, influence with a petition, or he's more likely to listen to us if we make a demand. Acha, this person has an image that he wants to um, preserve, so he will be most likely to listen to us if we take this on social media and if we try to make this petition big. So we did this whole campaign planning and strategy planning and power mapping and analysis of all of the different stakeholders involved. And we launched this video with a petition. And the petition was targeted at the Unilever CEO, the global Unilever CEO, because
Hmm.
Hindustan Unilever wasn't listening to the workers. So we
Hmm.
decided to take it global. And that video went viral. So it's called Kodaikanal Won't.
Hmm.
So it got, I don't know how many million views it received, but it was by this rapper, singer, musician woman called Sophia Ashraf. And she sang to the tune of Nicki Minaj's Anaconda. She sang about what was happening in Kodaikanal.
Hmm. I have seen that video. Yes.
There we go. Yeah, it was.
Yes.
It made headlines and stuff. So that's it. So yeah, so we ran that campaign, and
Hmm.
Nicki Minaj also retweeted it. Ashton Kutcher got involved. Like the whole the whole world got involved in it,
Hmm. Wow.
and and they got it. They got the fair compensation
Wow.
after
Uh,
that campaign. And that's one of the viral ones, that another viral thing that happened, or a viral online campaign that happened, because yeah, it was a tool where we used like offline support of these activists who knew what was happening, and who had already organized and had like almost unionized, or they had like been in touch with the workers for so long, so they had all of the knowledge, and we had the online know-how. And so we worked together, and it worked, and that had like a couple of million views, the video.
yeah. 4.2 million. I can see that right now.
Yeah, 4.2
Yeah.
million. Like we launched the campaign. We went to, we went home. I fell asleep. I wake up. I woke up late because it was a Saturday or a Sunday, and I wasn't going to work that day. So I woke up a little late, and I woke up and my phone is just exploding. And
Fuck.
it's like, oh, Nicki Minaj has retweeted this.
Oh.
I was like, wow, the Queen has retweeted it. But yeah, I think even with the farmers' protest, there was a lot of online support. You know, uh, they used Disha as a scapegoat, but there was a lot of online
Yeah,
support.
they did. Yeah.
The international figures spoke about it. Um, it had a lot of Indian online virality as well. So yeah, it did. I think there are moments where social media is a great tool to mobilize people on the internet. Even with Me Too, which
Hmm.
I was also briefly involved with, because I'm a campaigner first. That's what I've known my entire adult life, how to strategize on campaigns. So that's I try to look at everything through that angle. But yeah, so
Hmm.
even with Me Too, I was involved in the Me Too movement with a bunch of amazing women as well. And because of some very brave women who stepped forward anonymously from Teach for India, I was able to use their stories. So basically, what happened was that I had opened my DMs and I said, if you want to anonymously report something, um, anonymously, say Me Too, you can write to me with, XYZ details so that I can verify it, or have it corroborated by someone else, and then I will post it without naming you so that you don't fear for your job.
Hmm.
So I got a bunch of women from Teach for India reach out to me. Like one woman reached out to me, I corroborated her story, and then many, many, many more started coming to me and telling me um, they had faced a lot of sexually inappropriate behavior at Teach for India. And so I published all of these stories. Teach for India got in touch with me. Um, I said, you have to listen to the women. There is no point reaching out to me. You have to, fix your system. And after that, they did. Because of all of these women coming forward, they changed, they fired a couple of people, first of all. They sent a couple of people away on um, like suspension, under suspension, and they revamped their entire internal structure. So they had town halls in every place where people could talk openly about it. They hired an external um, company to come and essentially like do an evaluation and a cleanup of their processes. So all of that was possible because of the internet as well.
And also, I mean, Me Too reminds me that how dismissive, uh, I mean, people have been of these lived experiences, and it's just sometimes so unreal.
Yeah, I love it. Like all of these women were reaching out to me, and all I wanted to do, like, obviously, I didn't share any of their names unless they wanted me to. And even when journalists reached out to me to talk to these women, I told them that the only way that I would let them talk to the women would be if they promised anonymity and like complete, um, respecting all of the wishes of the women who had reached out to me. So all I wanted to do was to just put all of these women in a room together and be like, you're not alone, and I'm really sorry you had to deal with all of this, but you're not alone, and it's because of you now that Teacher India had to like change everything.
Hmm.
um, I don't know what it's like there now, but this was a very important like wake up call for them. And that's the thing, right? Like with cases of sexual harassment and sexual violence, women are ashamed to talk about it, and they feel like they're the only ones going through it sometimes. And
Hmm.
so after one woman came forward, so many women just immediately came forward, which is why I just love. I think women should talk to women more often. Like,
Hmm.
we have a whisper network. Women will always have a whisper network, but this was just an example of um, how powerful it is when all of these women came together. And
Does it hurt you at times when people sort of make fun of the Me Too movement? Sometimes, I mean, they will always do, but how do you think or take that or think about it?
I just look at the impact, at least with the segment of the work that I was I just focused on this Teach for India thing because once I put out one story from Teach for India and so many people came forward, I decided ki I will work on this one strand and stick with it.
Hmm.
And I did, and it worked. Now, I mean, I don't know about the making fun of the Me Too movement, but I know that these women were happy with the outcome. At least most of the women who who I followed up with, they were happy about it. So they felt like some sort of justice had been done. And because it was multiple women talking about the same couple of men, right? And those guys got fired. So I mean, you can. It's just yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the impact, and this impact was like really good
Hmm.
for the women who reached out to me. I mean, I don't think as a society we know how to, you know, I think men can get away with anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that the men who were fired are now in other jobs and doing just fine. But for these women, it was important for them to talk about their stories and to feel heard and for them to feel a little safer where they were working. And I hope I was able to facilitate that.
And TFI really behaved in a, with the way you're describing, TFI, I think, really behaved in a very responsible manner, I would say. As compared to many other organizations who had no idea, I mean, how to react when the topmost bosses were called out. And
No, they
yeah.
actually, no, I mean, internally, like the conversations I was having with TFI and the way they were talking to their staffers, they didn't behave well.
Oh, is it?
Mm.
Mm. Can
They,
you throw some more light there?
I think they told their staffers to stop talking about it.
Hmm.
The head of TFI reached out to me on email, and I, based on what, based on all of the stories that, allegations that these women had shared with me, I told her, this is the truth of it, boss. You have to fix your org, um, and I'm not going to stop talking about it if these women are continuing to face this kind of treatment from your organization. I'm not going to stop talking about it. But yeah, I mean, people sent me recordings and stuff from meetings. So women were like secretly sending me voice notes and recordings saying that this is what they told us. So they told
Hmm.
us to not talk about it, or they told us it's not a big deal. So I think
Hmm.
immediately their knee-jerk response was very bad.
Hmm.
Their long-term response, I think, has been better. But I don't know now what it's like.
We did not. We talked about all the stuff. All the stuff. We One thing which we have not talked about it, and I think we should, is tell me, how did you discovered your art form, and like what's the idea, bigger idea behind it?
So I discovered that I didn't know how to draw.
Okay.
And so that's why I made stick figures. No, but so essentially I wanted to, there were so many things happening in the country that I wanted to talk about, but I couldn't because I didn't know how to express myself outside of campaigning. Like I couldn't campaign or campaign on everything. Um, I liked writing, but I didn't want to I didn't want to write about everything in, like I don't want to write op-eds and stuff, but I did have opinions on things. I did want to comment on
Hmm.
the news. I did want to do something. I just felt so helpless sitting there and watching bad stuff happen. So I decided to scribble something on one of my notebooks once, and I showed it to a couple of friends. I showed it to my brother, and they, you know, they laughed. They sniggered rather. I don't think they even laughed. It wasn't that funny. I think they were just trying to be polite. And so I was like, oh, okay. Why not start a page? And this was also my I had started many things, right? So I was like, let's just start a page. And and I was like, okay, what's
Was it an impulse? Was it an impulse?
yeah, yeah. Randomly one evening after work. I was like, chalo, karte hain. And I put one comic. And then I like, shared it and I asked all of my friends to go like the page. And this was on Facebook. And
Hmm.
and then I decided, okay, let's make another one. So the next day or the day after that, I made another one. And they seemed to like that too. So I kept making it whenever I felt like it. It wasn't I didn't feel obligated, or I didn't feel like there was no timetable or a routine or anything. If I saw something and I thought about a joke about it, I would just make it. And at the time, I made it on a piece of paper and then I would take a photograph of that and post the photograph.
Hmm.
And so I just kept doing it whenever, and it was so easy to do. It took such little time, um, that I didn't have to like invest too much in it because I was already reading the news anyway. I was already thinking about the news anyway.
Hmm.
This was just me putting it down really quickly in a way that expressed how I felt about it.
Hmm.
And I know how to draw now. I learned how to draw. At least I can draw better than what better than just stick figures. But now I really really like the style because it's like it's so non-threatening. It is so non like it's so not intimidating. It's so simple, like your mind is not you're not your attention is not being drawn in by different elements of what's happening in front of you. It is just a stick figure and it's just the words. So the simplicity of the form combined with the often heavy messaging, I think works really well at a
Hmm.
time
Yeah.
when we are exposed to so much information. So it's almost like your eyes are getting a break from the constant stream of colors and information, and you see this black and white simple stick figure and a couple of words. And I think that it works when you're talking about a complex issue.
Hmm.
So I could change my style. I could start drawing more, more forms. Like I could draw an actual human being looking thing or a cartoon looking thing. But I really like how simple the stick figure is. And I also get intimidated by art, when I see something really beautiful and complex and structured, and sometimes it's like, this is scary, art is scary. There's so much talent
Hmm.
here. Or this is so like it just my stick figure feels very accessible.
Yeah. It is. I mean, and especially the templates you make.
Yeah, I
They're
love making the
lovely.
templates. It's like anyone can make a comic. You just
Yeah.
just start.
I
Um,
did tried once. I forgot which template I downloaded, but I did tried once, I guess.
yeah, it's also like, yeah, it makes you feel like, I could also do this. I could also have
Hmm.
this opinion. I could also um, put my voice out there.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's very important, especially for women, to feel more involved in politics, not as something that happens to them, but something that they can be involved in.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I like the juxtaposition of the complex issues with the simplistic black and white stick figures.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that is something which is completely extraordinary, that how the biggest of message you communicate in, like, just like one strip and one panel, and like that's all. And I mean, I was just scrolling through your Instagram, and there was this one post that the comic of Modi ji says to comic of Amit Shah, that what do we do to the activist, and Amit Shah replies, do you want me to kill them or manage them with money? That is brilliant. I mean, the way, I mean, there is so much satire and humor uh, loaded on top of it with their personas. It's crazy. How do you do that?
Thank you. It's taken years of work for me to understand what works, what's funny. Um, so like sometimes when I see my old work, it's like, yeah, some of them are pretty funny and satirical and clever, but it was also a lot less nuanced in the past.
Hmm.
So now I spend, because at that time I wasn't spending too much time doing it, but now I spend a lot of time thinking about comics. I am constantly thinking about comics. 24/7. I mean, except when I'm asleep. Even when I'm asleep, I'm sure
Wow.
I'm thinking about comics.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing when now because the form doesn't take too long, I have to make sure that the content is really good. So like the words have to be really crisp and to the point. The joke, the punchline, all of that has to compensate for the fact that there's not much visually going on, you
Hmm.
know? So I have to focus more on the writing. And I love doing that. I spend so much time trying to find the right words sometimes. And this is also where my friends come into play. They help me a lot with feedback. So they'll say, "Achani, this didn't land, or maybe this word should be replaced with that." Or sometimes just giving me the validation I need or to feel confident enough to post it. But yeah, I spend so much time on the writing, and that's my favorite bit of the work: the
Hmm.
idea and the writing. The idea is
Hmm.
the hardest part, but I don't do any like for when I'm coming up with an idea, I'm not sitting in front of my iPad or a piece of paper. I am cooking or working out or scrolling on Twitter or having chai. Like I'm not actively sitting and going, now I am going to think about a comic idea.
Hmm. Wow, that's pretty fascinating. And do you also have a favorite strip where, I mean, in a way that it sort of went viral, then it scared the shit out of you? That okay, you this is going too much now, and it has to slow down. Do you also have such a moment?
Mm, I mean, usually when something goes viral, I feel happy. It's like my content is out there, people are resonating with it. Um, I don't know. I think, yeah, I mean, when something does go, I think during the CA&RC protests, a lot of my comics were used widely. And they were also used in protests. So
Hmm.
people were, because it's so easy to replicate it, people were making the comic, they were drawing the comic themselves and then taking it to protests,
Hmm.
which was amazing, which is exactly what I want to do. I want to feel like I'm like helping people out or being useful because there were these women who were, putting their bodies on the line. They were like sitting there at Shaheen Bagh in the icy cold and you know, doing so much for our democracy by being there and by protesting day and night. Yeah, so essentially, like, there were people who were going to protests and doing all of the actual work. Um, and the women at Shaheen Bagh were just so inspiring. And I felt like even if I could do my little bit share of giving some, I was helping mobilize online, like sharing the dates and times of protests that people could join. And also, I just wanted everyone to feel free to use my art if they wanted to. So that was very inspiring to see people using my comics. So yeah, I mean, at that time, I was also getting more heavily trolled. I was getting more harassment than usual because of how much my comics were being used um, and shared. Um, so yeah, I mean, but no, I don't think I've had a point कि अच्छा नहीं बहुत हो गया ये ज़्यादा ही वायरल जा रहा है.
वो एक था ना सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ऊपर, वो भगवा फ्लैग वाला, वो दैट लैंडेड यू इन सम ट्रबल, इज दैट?
Yeah, so there's an ongoing contempt case against me in the Supreme Court over a few of my comics. I can't speak about it because it's ongoing.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just vaguely remembered that one. There were many. I think specifically the one involving the government would be more prone to get you into trouble, I guess.
Um, no comments.
No comments. Yeah, let's just skip this part. Hmm. Tell me this, Rachita. What do you recommend to budding artists who, I mean, how can you sustain a living out of this? Uh, I mean, the idea of freelancing and creating a comic and just surviving on art. Is it tough, or I mean, it's okay, or is it challenging? How does it goes? What are the nuances of it?
It's quite challenging, um, especially if you're talking about. political issues because you know not earlier this year, but earlier last year, a lot of artists, political artists, cartoonists I knew lost a lot of their gigs because of their work on COVID. So they were talking about the government's mismanagement of COVID, for example, and they lost their contracts. So when you're talking about politics in this climate, if you're being critical of the government, it is very hard to get um, a job with the media house. So you have
Hmm.
to you have to be creative in the ways that you earn money. So generally what I would say is, like I said before, consistency is important. You need to be consistent in um, putting out your art or your comic or whatever. The second thing would be that it's going to take a couple of years before you can monetize it. Um, unless you can partner up with a brand, and I'm talking about like specifically political art. It'll take
Hmm.
a while before you can monetize it. So usually I would say using platforms like Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee, where you can crowdfund your regular expenses, um, is a good way to start. It's the most it's been central to what I do. I have a Patreon and a Buy Me a Coffee, and that income is really helpful. But it only came after, you know, 5 years of doing this. So at the beginning, it's not going to pay. If you're able to gather an audience and have a niche, then there is a way to get a regular income through these kinds of platforms, but you need to find a niche. So I would say consistency, finding a unique selling point, and a lot of openness to feedback. It is challenging to make money as a political cartoonist.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine, and it's a very very niche uh, field in general. And at this climate, I mean, nobody wants, like you said, wants to sort of uh, take risks that way. Mm.
Yeah, media houses are now like all under the government's thumb, so they're not going to
Mm.
publish, you know, um, comics that are critical of the government. So yeah, it's difficult to get like a sustainable job in this field. Um, but yeah, sorry, I was thinking about something else and now I completely forgot. Yeah, sorry. One more thing is just that when I say the unique selling point is important because of how much information we're being exposed to on a regular basis. I think one
Mm.
of the things that I got lucky with was to have started my comic um, in 2014,
Mm.
um, before Instagram was so big, or before Instagram even. When did Instagram come? Anyway, so I was able to have gathered an audience before Instagram came in. And so, because I was one of the early adopters of the format, of the visual comic panel format, um, I had a unique advantage at that time. I got in early, essentially,
Mm.
which is why I was able to gather an audience quicker. Because there were not many people saying what I was saying in the way that I was saying it back then. Now there are
Mm.
so many people who are doing this, which is why, and there are so many fantastic people who I follow who are doing not the stick figure style, but political cartooning.
Mm.
So the reason that their thing is working is because they also have a USP. So yeah, you have to find what makes you unique and special, because there are so many people making political art, making comics, that you need to stand out.
Hmm. And what's your thing with BJP in general? I mean, it feels that they get the best out of you.
They're they do a lot of bad things. I don't know how else to put it. They're destroying our democracy. They're destroying everything India, the constitution stands for. They're destroying everything that so many people. Sorry, yeah, I just it's just so hard to think about how quickly they're deteriorating. Um, how quickly our country is deteriorating under them.
Hmm.
They're undoing so much of the work that was done before us, and I don't think that's okay. I don't want them destroying my country.
Hmm.
So if there is any other government that does this in my lifetime, I will also question them with as much vigor, if not more.
Rachita Taneja, I think this was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much on coming on Lights Camera Azadi.
Thank you
It
for
is
having me.
a pleasure to host you.
Thank you so much, Mandir.